And honestly, that was just the beginning of the most unhinged 24 hours of my entire life. Look, I need you to understand something right off the bat. I'm not a dramatic person. I'm a tax attorney. I spend my days elbow deep in 1099 forms and quarterly filings. My idea of excitement is finding a receipt I'd forgotten about that saves a client $300. So when I tell you what happened at Marcus's wedding, when I say it changed everything I thought I knew about my family, you have to believe me. Because I still can't quite believe it myself, and I was there. It started 6 months before the wedding, when Marcus called me on a Tuesday evening. I remember it was Tuesday because I'd just gotten home from my kickboxing class, still sweaty, hair plastered to my forehead, desperately wanting a shower. My phone buzzed. Marcus. We weren't close, hadn't been since high school, really, but we were civil. Polite. The kind of siblings who exchanged exactly 2 texts on birthdays and showed up to family holidays with strained smiles. Ray, he said, and I could hear something weird in his voice. Something tight. I'm getting married. Oh. Wow. Congratulations? It came out as a question because I didn't even know he had a serious girlfriend. Her name's Vanessa. You'll love her. She's amazing. He paused. The wedding's in 6 months. You'll be there, right? Of course, I said, because what else do you say? Great. Good. Because, there's something I need to tell you about the seating arrangements. And that's when my stomach did this weird little flip, the kind you get when you're about to hear something you really don't want to hear. Mom and Dad think it would be better if you sat separately from the family table. You know, since you'll probably be bringing someone, and Vanessa's family is. They're traditional. They have opinions about certain things. I stood there in my tiny apartment, dripping sweat onto my hardwood floor, and felt something cold slide down my spine. What certain things, Marcus? Come on, Ray. Don't make this harder than it has to be. What? Things. He sighed, and in that sigh I heard everything. Every family dinner where Mom had changed the subject when I mentioned dating. Every Christmas where Dad had somehow managed to never ask about my personal life. Every subtle, careful erasure of who I actually was. Your lifestyle, Marcus finally said, and I could hear him cringing even as he said it. Look, it's not me, okay? But Vanessa's parents are contributing a lot to this wedding, and they're old-fashioned, conservative. And Mom thought it would just be easier if we didn't highlight anything that might make them uncomfortable. I should have yelled. I should have told him exactly where he could shove his seating arrangements. Instead, I heard myself say, I wasn't planning on bringing anyone anyway. Oh. He sounded relieved. Well, that's probably for the best. You'll still sit at a regular table, just not the family one. With some of Vanessa's cousins. They're nice. You'll be fine. I wasn't fine. But I said I was, because that's what I always did. I hung up and stood there for 10 more minutes, dripping sweat and feeling like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Here's the thing about being erased, it doesn't happen all at once. It's 1,000 tiny cuts, little moments where your family decides your existence is inconvenient to their comfort. You tell yourself it's not that bad. You make excuses. You minimize. And then one day you're 32 years old and your brother is uninviting you from your own family because your truth might upset people you've never even met. I almost didn't go. I came this close to sending a polite text the week before, so sorry, work emergency, can't make it, congratulations you two. But my best friend Simone talked me out of it. You go, she said over overpriced cocktails at our favorite wine bar. You go, you look absolutely stunning, and you show them that their shame doesn't touch you. I should bring a date, I said, mostly joking. Show up with someone gorgeous just to watch Mom's face. Do it, Simone said immediately. I'm serious. Do it. I'm not bringing a fake date to my brother's wedding. That's pathetic. More pathetic than sitting alone at a table of strangers while your family pretends you don't exist? She had a point. But I didn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to play that game, to prove anything to them. So I went alone. Bought a dress that cost more than I should have spent, deep emerald green, fitted, elegant. If I was going to be relegated to the shadows, I'd be the best-dressed shadow there. The wedding was at this ridiculous vineyard estate 2 hours outside the city. Rolling hills, endless grapevines, a venue that probably cost more than my annual salary. I drove there on a Saturday morning with my stomach in knots, practicing what I'd say to my parents. How I'd smile and be gracious and not let them see how much this hurt. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll give them that. Marcus looked happy. Vanessa was objectively stunning, tall, blonde, the kind of woman who looked like she'd never had an awkward day in her life. I sat in the back row, sandwiched between second cousins I barely recognized, and watched my brother get married while my parents sat in the front, never once turning around to look for me. That should have been the worst part. It wasn't. The reception was held in this massive barn that had been converted into something out of a magazine spread. String lights everywhere, long wooden tables with white linens, centerpieces that probably cost more than my car payment. I found my assigned table, table 14, way in the back corner, partially obscured by a decorative pillar, and sat down with a glass of champagne I'd grabbed from a passing waiter. The other seats at my table were empty. All of them. I sat there for 15 minutes, watching families and friend groups laugh and settle in around me, and slowly realized they'd put me at a table by myself. Not with Vanessa's cousins. Not with anyone. Just alone, in the back, where I could be forgotten. My hands started shaking. I gripped my champagne glass harder, watching condensation drip down onto the white tablecloth. Around me, the reception swelled with noise, laughter, music, the clink of glasses. And I was invisible. Actually, literally invisible. I was about to leave. I had my purse on my lap, mentally calculating how long it would take to get to my car, when someone slid into the chair next to me. "This seat taken?" I looked up. The woman was probably close to my age, maybe a year or two older, with dark hair pulled back in an elegant twist, and eyes that were almost unsettlingly observant. She wore a simple black dress and a slight smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. "No," I said, confused. "But I think you might be at the wrong table." "I'm exactly where I need to be," she said, and something in her voice made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Not in a bad way. In a way that felt like static electricity, like potential energy. She extended her hand. "Claire." "Ray," I said, shaking it. Her grip was firm, confident. "I know who you are," Claire said, settling into her chair like she owned it. "You're Marcus's sister." "How did you?" "I make it my business to know things." She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "I also make it my business to notice when someone's being treated like garbage by their own family." "That table arrangement? That's deliberate cruelty dressed up as keeping the peace." I stared at her. "Are you here with someone? From the wedding?" "In a manner of speaking." She leaned closer, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, something expensive and slightly dangerous. "Here's what's going to happen. In about 30 seconds, your brother and his new wife are going to come over here to greet their guests. When they do, I need you to act like you're with me. Like we're together. Can you do that?" My brain stuttered. "What? Why would I?" "Because," Claire said, her voice dropping to something that sent shivers down my spine, "your family decided your truth was shameful enough to hide. So let's give them something to see. Let's make them confront exactly what they were trying to erase." "I don't understand." "You don't have to. Just trust me for 60 seconds. Act like I'm your girlfriend. Laugh at something I say. Touch my arm. Be yourself, but be yourself with me." And then, like she'd somehow orchestrated it, I heard Marcus's voice behind me. "Ray? I didn't realize you'd be sitting over here." I turned, and there he was with Vanessa on his arm, both of them smiling those practiced wedding host smiles. And I saw something in his eyes, relief, maybe, that I was tucked away in the corner. Out of sight. Claire's hand landed on my shoulder, warm and solid and real. "Hi," she said brightly, extending her other hand to Marcus. "You must be the groom." "I'm Claire. Ray's girlfriend." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Marcus's smile froze. Vanessa's eyes went wide. And I, sitting there with Claire's hand on my shoulder, made a choice. I reached up and covered her hand with mine. "Marcus, Vanessa, this is Claire," I said, and my voice didn't shake even though my heart was hammering. "She's been dying to meet you." I watched my brother's face cycle through about 17 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion. Shock. Panic. And then, most tellingly, anger. Not at the situation. At me. For daring to exist visibly. "I didn't know you were bringing someone," Marcus managed. "Neither did I said honestly. But here we are." Claire stood, and I stood with her, and suddenly we were a united front. She kept her hand on the small of my back, possessive and gentle, and I let myself lean into her slightly. It felt like armor. Like protection. "Beautiful ceremony," Claire said smoothly. The vows were particularly moving. All that stuff about accepting each other completely, loving each other's whole truth. Really powerful. Vanessa made a small choking sound. Marcus's jaw tightened. Right, he said. Well, enjoy the reception. They escaped, and I watched them beeline directly to our parents' table. I could see my mother's hand fly to her chest. Could see my father lean forward, his face darkening. That, Claire said, settling back into her chair and pulling me down with her, was phase 1. I stared at her. Phase 1 of what? Who are you? She picked up a menu card, examining it with casual interest. I told you. Someone who knows things. And what I know about your family, Ray, would make your head spin. What are you talking about? Your parents didn't just ask Marcus to seat you separately because Vanessa's family is conservative. They specifically requested you be isolated because they've been working very hard to hide something. Something that, if it came out, would completely derail this very expensive wedding. My mouth went dry. What are you talking about? Claire's eyes met mine, and they were deadly serious. Your mother had an affair 7 years ago. With Vanessa's father. The world tilted. That can't be true. It's very true. And Vanessa's mother found out about it 6 months ago, right around the time Marcus and Vanessa got engaged. She agreed not to blow up both families on one condition, that your mother proved she could be discreet. That she could keep family secrets buried. Claire paused. You, Ray, are a secret your mother has been trying to bury for years. Vanessa's mother basically used you as a test. If your mom could hide you, erase you from the family narrative for one day, then she'd keep quiet about the affair. I couldn't breathe. How do you know this? Because Vanessa's mother is my aunt, Claire said simply. And I've spent the last 6 months watching her manipulate your family like puppets. I came today because I was curious. I wanted to see if your mother would actually do it. If she'd actually erase her own daughter to save face. She looked at me, and something in her expression softened. And then I saw you sitting here alone, and I got angry. This is insane. Why would you tell me this? Why would you help me? Because I'm tired of watching people like my aunt destroy families for their own satisfaction. Because your brother's wedding is built on lies and extortion. And because nobody should have to sit alone at their own brother's wedding while their mother trades them for silence. She leaned back. So I'm going to help you blow this whole thing up. If you want to. I should have said no. Should have grabbed my purse and run. Should have done literally anything other than what I did. Yes, I said. Tell me everything. Claire smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut glass. First, we need to make sure everyone sees us together. Not just your family, everyone. We need witnesses. And then, during the toasts, I'm going to stand up and say a few things that are going to make your mother and my aunt very, very uncomfortable. They'll throw you out. Let them try. She flagged down a waiter, ordered us 2 more glasses of champagne. By the time I'm done, everyone at this wedding will know exactly what kind of people they're dealing with. My parents appeared at our table 10 minutes later. Mom's face was pale, pinched. Dad looked like he was about to have a stroke. Ray, Mom said tightly. Can we speak with you? Privately? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Claire, I said, and I was amazed at how steady my voice sounded. Mom's eyes darted to Claire, then back to me. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is Marcus's day. You are not going to make a scene. I'm not making a scene. I'm sitting at my assigned table with my girlfriend. That's all. You specifically discussed erasing me, I said, and my voice rose slightly. You banished me to the back corner because my existence embarrassed you. So forgive me if I don't really care about your comfort right now. Dad stepped forward. You watch your tone, Mr. Chen, Claire interrupted smoothly, standing. I don't think we've been formally introduced. Claire Morrison. Vanessa's second cousin, once removed. On her mother's side? I watched the blood drain from my mother's face. She knew that name. She knew exactly who Claire was connected to. You need to leave, Mom whispered. I'm a guest, Claire said pleasantly. I have an invitation and everything. From Aunt Diane, actually. She specifically asked me to come. Said she wanted family here. She paused, let that sink in. All the family. Even the messy parts. Dad grabbed Mom's arm. We need to go. They fled, and I turned to Claire with wide eyes. You're really going to do this. We're really going to do this, she corrected. Together. If you're in. I thought about every family dinner where I'd bitten my tongue. Every holiday where I'd pretended to be someone smaller, quieter, more convenient. Every time I'd accepted being loved conditionally, on their terms, in the shadows. "I'm in," I said. The dinner service went by in a blur. Claire and I actually talked, not just performed, and I found myself genuinely liking her. She was funny, sharp, asked me real questions about my work, my life. Several times I forgot this was strategic and just enjoyed having someone interesting to talk to. Other guests started noticing us. I could see heads turning, whispers spreading. Marcus and Vanessa's carefully curated wedding was developing a subplot they hadn't anticipated. When the toast started, I felt my heart rate spike. Best man speech, sweet and slightly drunk. Maid of honor speech, teary and predictable. And then the DJ announced that there was one more person who wanted to say a few words. Claire stood up. "I know I'm not on the official toast list," she said, her voice carrying across the barn with surprising authority. "But I wanted to take a moment to talk about family. About what it means to really love someone." Marcus stood up from the head table. "I don't think. I'll be brief," Claire promised, her smile razor sharp. She held up her glass. "I'm here today as a guest of the Morrison family, and I've spent the evening getting to know Ray Chen, the groom's sister. She's brilliant, kind, funny, and she's been sitting at a table by herself in the back of this barn because her own family decided she was an inconvenience." The room went silent. I could hear my own heartbeat. "See, I learned something interesting recently," Claire continued. "I learned that sometimes families make terrible bargains to protect themselves. They trade truth for appearance. They sacrifice the people who deserve their love most to keep ugly secrets buried." She looked directly at my mother. "And sometimes, those secrets involve affairs with other wedding guests' relatives." My mother shot to her feet. "Stop this right now. Did everyone hear that Marcus and Ray's mother, Patricia Chen, had a year-long affair with Vanessa's father, Richard Morrison?" Claire's voice rang out clear and unshakable. "It ended 7 years ago, but Vanessa's mother, Diane Morrison, only found out 6 months ago. Right around the time Marcus and Vanessa got engaged." Vanessa's mother stood up, her face purple. "You have no right," and instead of being honest, instead of dealing with this like adults, Diane decided to extort Patricia. Told her that if she could prove she could keep secrets, if she could hide her own daughter's identity for one day at this wedding, then Diane would keep quiet about the affair. Claire turned to Marcus. "Your seating chart? That wasn't about anyone's comfort. That was your mother's payment for her girlfriend's mother's silence." The barn erupted. Shouting, gasps, chairs scraping. Vanessa burst into tears. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. My father had his head in his hands. Claire calmly walked back to our table and sat down next to me. "I think that's our cue to leave," she said. I grabbed my purse and followed her out into the cool evening air, my head spinning. Behind us, the barn was chaos, accusations flying, families imploding, a wedding completely derailed. We made it to the parking lot before I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity, the destruction, the sheer nuclear explosion of truth, it hit me all at once and I doubled over, laughing so hard tears streamed down my face. Claire watched me with a small smile. "Feel good?" "I feel insane," I gasped. "That was insane. Oh my God, we just destroyed my brother's wedding." "We destroyed a wedding that was built on lies and extortion," Claire corrected. "There's a difference." I straightened up, wiping my eyes. "Who are you, really?" "Someone who's tired of watching people like my aunt hurt others to protect their own pride." She paused. "And someone who saw a woman sitting alone at a table and thought, that's not right." My phone started buzzing. Texts flooding in. I ignored them all. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you decide who you want to be. Someone who accepts being erased? Or someone who takes up space unapologetically?" I looked back at the barn, where my family was probably still reeling. Where my mother's carefully constructed image had shattered. Where my brother's perfect wedding had become the scandal everyone would talk about for years. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt terrible. I felt free. "I need a drink," I said. "A real drink. Not wedding champagne." Claire pulled out her car keys. "I know a place. 20 minutes away. Best whiskey in the county." "You're just going to kidnap me now?" "Only if you want to be kidnapped." I looked at this stranger who'd materialized at my table like an avenging angel, who'd detonated my family's carefully maintained lies, who'd given me permission to be seen. "Yeah," I said. "Okay." We drove to a small bar that overlooked the Vineyard Valley, all dark wood and low lighting. Found a booth in the back. Ordered whiskey that tasted like smoke and fire. "Tell me something real," I said after my second drink. Not strategy, not revenge. Something true. Claire considered this, swirling her glass. My father left when I was 12. My mother remarried Diane's brother, which is how I got connected to that whole mess. I've spent my entire adult life watching Diane manipulate people, my uncle, my cousins, everyone around her. She's the kind of person who needs control like oxygen. She looked at me. When I found out what she was doing to your family, how she was using you as leverage, I knew I had to do something. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe it wasn't my place. But I couldn't watch another person get erased. Thank you, I said quietly. I mean it. Thank you. You're the one who chose to stay. To stand with me. She smiled. That took courage. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus. I declined the call. They're going to blame me for all of this, I said. My parents, Marcus, probably Vanessa too. I'll be the villain who ruined the wedding. You'll be the scapegoat, Claire agreed. But you'll also be free. That's worth something. She was right. In the morning, I'd probably have 17 voicemails and a family who never wanted to speak to me again. But I'd also have myself, undiminished. Unapologetic. Claire and I stayed at that bar until midnight, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her work as a corporate investigator, which explained a lot. I told her about tax law, which she somehow made seem interesting by asking genuinely good questions. At some point, the bartender gently told us they were closing. We walked out into the cool night air, and I realized I didn't want this to end. So, I said, leaning against her car. Was this all strategic? The girlfriend act? Claire stepped closer, and in the parking lot's dim light, I could see something real in her eyes. Something that had nothing to do with revenge or strategy. At first, she admitted. But somewhere around the third time you laughed at one of my terrible jokes, it stopped being an act. She paused. I'd like to see you again. For real this time. No fake relationships, no wedding drama. Just us. I'd like that too, I said, and meant it. She drove me back to my car at the vineyard. The barn was dark now, the parking lot mostly empty. Just a few stragglers and what looked like a very tense conversation happening near the entrance, Marcus and my parents, probably, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. I didn't stop to find out. I got in my car, rolled down the window for one last look at Claire. Text me when you get home safe? She said. Only if you do the same. She smiled, and I pulled out of that parking lot feeling lighter than I had in years. The fallout was spectacular. My parents called me once, 2 days after the wedding, to inform me I was no longer welcome at family events. Marcus sent a 3-paragraph text about how I deliberately sabotaged his happiness. My aunts and uncles took sides. The family fractured along fault lines I hadn't even known existed. And I was okay. Better than okay. I was present in my own life for the first time in years. Claire and I went on a real date the following weekend. And then another. And then suddenly 3 months had passed and she was keeping a toothbrush at my apartment, and I was meeting her friends and we were building something real. My inbox still had unanswered emails from my mother. I knew eventually I'd have to deal with it all, have conversations that would be painful and complicated and maybe not resolve anything. But right now, 6 months after the wedding that imploded, I was sitting in Claire's kitchen watching her make terrible pancakes while telling me about her latest case, and I was happy. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long moment. Claire glanced over. Your family? Vanessa? My brother's wife? You going to answer? I thought about it. About bridges burned and relationships shattered and the fact that sometimes destruction is the only path to honesty. Maybe. But not today, I texted back. I put my phone down and went back to watching Claire murder breakfast, and I thought about how strange it was that the worst day of my life, sitting alone at that table, exiled by my own family, had led to this. To freedom. To truth. To someone who saw me and chose to stay. Marcus's wedding had been beautiful, expensive, perfect in every curated detail. And it had been built on lies, extortion, and the erasure of anyone inconvenient to the image they wanted to project. It deserved to burn. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a foundation built on rot is let it collapse. Clear the ground. Start over. I was starting over. And honestly, I'd never felt more like myself. Claire set a plate of slightly charred pancakes in front of me with an apologetic smile. I swear I followed the recipe. They're perfect, I said, and meant it. Because perfect isn't about appearances or maintaining comfortable lies. Perfect is sitting in someone's kitchen on a Sunday morning, eating terrible pancakes, and knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. No shadows. No asterisks. No apologizing for existing. Just me, undiminished. And it turns out, that's more than enough. 3 years later, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Heavy cardstock, elegant calligraphy. I opened it expecting another distant cousin I barely knew. It was from Marcus. He and Vanessa had separated quietly about a year after their disastrous wedding, an outcome that surprised exactly no one. The invitation was for his wedding to someone named David. A small ceremony, immediate family only. And underneath my name on the envelope, in Marcus's handwriting, +1 welcome. I'm sorry. Can we talk? I showed it to Claire over dinner that night. She read it carefully, then looked at me. What do you want to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to tear it up. Part of me wants to hear what he has to say. Then let's go find out, Claire said simply. Together. So we did. We RSVP'd yes, and the following month we drove to a small restaurant in the city where Marcus was having his second, much smaller wedding. He found me as soon as we arrived. Older, more tired around the eyes, but also somehow lighter. Ray, he said. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, I said honestly. He looked at Claire, then back at me. I owe you both an apology. A real one. What we did, what I let Mom and Dad do, it was inexcusable. I was so wrapped up in what Vanessa's family thought, in maintaining appearances, that I let them erase you. My own sister. I waited. This was the part where people usually added a but or a justification. He didn't. I'm sorry, Marcus continued. I'm sorry for every time I chose convenience over courage. For every time I let them minimize you. You deserved better. You deserved family that celebrated you, not hid you away. Something in my chest loosened. Thank you, I said quietly. That means something. I'm trying to do better. David helped me see. He gestured to a kind-looking man near the bar who waved at us. He helped me see that loving someone means all of them. Not the convenient parts. All of it. Smart man, Claire said. Marcus smiled. He is. I got really lucky. We stayed for the ceremony. It was simple, honest, filled with people who clearly actually knew and loved both grooms. My parents weren't there. Marcus told me later they'd refused to come when he wouldn't uninvite me. Some bridges burn and that's okay. Others can be rebuilt, slowly, with truth and intention and the willingness to be uncomfortable. I don't know yet which kind of bridge Marcus and I have. But I'm willing to find out. As Claire and I drove home that night, she reached over and took my hand. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and realized it was true. I really am. Because here's what I learned at that first wedding, the one that exploded so spectacularly: you can't build anything real on lies. Not weddings, not families, not relationships. And trying to do so just means everyone ends up crushed under the weight of maintaining the illusion. But honesty? Truth? Those are foundations that last. Even when, especially when, they're uncomfortable. I still think about that day sometimes. About sitting alone at table 14, invisible and erased. About Claire appearing like some kind of avenging angel and whispering, "Act like you're with me." Best thing I ever did was say yes. Because I wasn't just acting. Not really. I was choosing to be seen. To exist loudly and unapologetically. To stop making myself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for me anyway. And yeah, it cost me things. It cost me a relationship with my parents that I'm still not sure can be repaired. It cost me the illusion of family unity. But it gave me myself. Whole and undiminished. And that's worth everything. My phone buzzes as we pull into our apartment complex. A text from my mom, the first one in 3 years. Your father had a stroke. He's asking for you. I stare at the words, feeling my stomach clench. Claire pulls into our parking spot, kills the engine, looks at me. What is it? I show her. She reads it, her expression careful. What do you need? She asks. And that's the thing about real love, real partnership, it doesn't tell you what to do. It asks what you need and shows up for it. I need to think, I say. And maybe call Marcus. Okay, Claire says simply. I'm here. Whatever you decide. I lean my head back against the seat and close my eyes. The story isn't over, I realize. It probably never will be. Family is messy and complicated, and sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who are supposed to love you best. But I'm not that person anymore, sitting alone at table 14, accepting erasure as the price of belonging. I'm someone who knows her worth, who has people in her corner, who can face whatever comes next with her eyes open and her truth intact. I open my phone and call Marcus. Ray? He answers on the first ring. I got Mom's text, I say. Tell me everything. And as he talks, I reach over and take Claire's hand. Squeeze it once. She squeezes back. Whatever happens next, I'm not facing it alone. I'm not in the shadows anymore. And I'm never going back. But here's the thing about declaring you're never going back, life has a way of testing that conviction. Marcus fills me in on the details. Dad collapsed at home 3 days ago. Massive stroke. Left side paralysis. Mom has been at the hospital constantly, sleeping in a chair by his bed. He's stable now, but the doctors say the next 72 hours are critical. He's been asking for you, Marcus says quietly. He keeps saying your name. Mom won't tell him you're not there. What do you mean she won't tell him? She tells him you're coming. That you're on your way. I don't know if she actually believes it or if she's just trying to keep him calm. Marcus pauses. I think she's scared, Ray. Really scared. I close my eyes. 3 years. 3 years of silence, of unanswered emails and blocked numbers, and the kind of cold war that families wage when no one knows how to say sorry. I don't know if I can do this, I admit. I'm not asking you to forgive anyone, Marcus says. I'm just telling you what's happening. What you do with that information is up to you. We hang up, and I sit in the car with Claire in the dimming evening light. Our apartment building rises above us, warm lights in windows, people coming home to their normal lives. Tell me what you're thinking, Claire says. I'm thinking about the last conversation I had with my father, I say slowly. It was right after your toast. He cornered me in the parking lot while you were getting your car. He told me I was selfish. That I'd always put my own needs above the family. That he didn't know how he'd raised someone so intent on destroying everything they'd built. Claire's hand tightens on mine. I told him he hadn't built anything except a house of cards held together by shame. And then I left. That was it. 3 years ago. Do you want those to be the last words you ever said to him? The question lands like a stone in water, ripples spreading out. No, I whisper. I don't. Then we go, Claire says simply. Not because you owe them anything. Not because you have to forgive or forget. But because you deserve to close this chapter on your terms, not theirs. We go inside, and I pack an overnight bag with shaking hands. Claire calls her assistant, cancels her meetings for the next 2 days. Within an hour, we're on the road to the hospital 3 hours away. The drive is quiet. Claire keeps one hand on my knee while she drives, steady and grounding. I watch the landscape blur past in the darkness and try to figure out what I'm going to say. What you say to a father who chose silence over love. Who let his own shame matter more than his daughter. We arrive at the hospital just after 11. The ICU is eerily quiet, just the beep of monitors and the soft squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Marcus is in the waiting room, looking exhausted. David's with him, and they both stand when we arrive. She's in there, Marcus says, nodding toward Dad's room. She doesn't know you're coming. Great, I mutter. This won't be awkward at all. But I walk down that hallway anyway, Claire beside me, and I push open the door to room 437. My mother is exactly where Marcus said she'd be, in a chair pulled up next to the bed, holding Dad's hand. She looks up when we enter, and for a moment, I see every year that's passed written on her face. She looks older. Smaller somehow. Ray, she breathes. I don't respond. I'm looking at my father instead, at this man who seems to have shrunk since I last saw him. His face is slack on one side, an oxygen tube in his nose. His eyes are closed. He's sleeping, Mom says unnecessarily. The medication makes him drowsy. Marcus said he's been asking for me. Something flickers across her face. Yes. He's been confused. The stroke affected his speech, but he keeps saying your name. I move closer to the bed, and Mom stiffens. Like she thinks I might do something to hurt him. The absurdity of it almost makes me laugh. Why didn't you call me yourself? I ask quietly. Mom looks down at her hands. I didn't think you'd come. You didn't give me the chance to decide. After everything that happened at the wedding, after everything you did at the wedding, I correct. After you traded me like currency to keep your secrets safe. After you let Vanessa's mother use me as a bargaining chip. After you made me sit alone in the back like I was something shameful to hide. Mom's face crumbles. I was protecting the family. You were protecting yourself, I say, and there's no anger in it anymore. Just exhaustion. Just truth. And you know what the saddest part is? I would have understood if you'd just been honest. If you'd said, I made a terrible mistake, I had an affair, and now I'm being blackmailed. I would have been hurt, yeah. But I would have been there for you. Instead, you chose to erase me. Your own daughter. I didn't know what else to do, Mom whispers. Diane said if I couldn't prove I could keep secrets, she'd tell everyone. She'd destroy our family, Marcus's marriage, everything. I panicked. So you sacrificed me? I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd see it was temporary, just for one day. It wasn't one day, Mom. It was a lifetime. Every time you changed the subject when I mentioned dating. Every time you asked me not to bring anyone to holidays. Every time you made it clear that the real me wasn't welcome in this family. I pause, feeling tears sting my eyes. The wedding was just the moment I finally saw it clearly. Dad makes a sound then, a small groan. His eyes flutter open, unfocused at first. Then they land on me, and something like recognition sparks. Ray, he slurs, his speech thick and unsteady. You came. I move closer, and Claire stays back, giving me space. Yeah, Dad. I came. His good hand reaches out, trembling. Without thinking, I take it. His grip is weak, uncertain. Sorry, he manages. I'm so sorry. And just like that, I'm crying. Not gentle tears, ugly, gasping sobs that I've been holding back for 3 years. All the hurt, all the rejection, all the times I made myself small, it still wasn't enough. Mom starts crying too, her hands over her mouth. Claire appears beside me, tissues in hand, her other arm around my waist. I wanted. Dad struggles with the words. Wanted you. To be safe. Thought of you. Just. Hid it. Life would be easier. I didn't want easier, I choke out. I wanted to be loved. All of me. Not just the parts that were convenient. Love you, Dad says, and his eyes are clearer now, more focused. Always. Loved you. Just. Scared. Scared of what? World. People. What they'd do to you. What they'd say. He squeezes my hand. Thought protecting you meant hiding you. Was wrong. I sink into the chair next to his bed, still holding his hand. Yeah. You were wrong. Can you? He swallows hard, forgive me? And there it is. The question that's been hovering in the air since I walked into this room. Can I forgive him? Can I forgive her? Can I let go of 3 years of hurt and betrayal because now, when he's sick and scared, he's finally saying the words I needed to hear? I don't know, I say honestly. I don't know if I can forgive yet. But I'm here. That's something. Dad nods, just slightly. Enough. That's enough. We sit in silence for a while, the 4 of us, me, Dad, Mom, and Claire standing sentinel behind me. The monitors beep their steady rhythm. A nurse comes in, checks Dad's vitals, smiles at us kindly. Eventually, Dad drifts back to sleep, his hand still in mine. I look up at Mom, really look at her. Tell me about the affair, I say quietly. She flinches. Ray, no more secrets. No more hiding. If we're going to do this, if we're going to try to be a family again, it starts with honesty. Tell me what happened. Mom glances at Claire, uncertain. She stays, I say firmly. She's family. More family than you've been to me in years. That lands hard, I can see it. But Mom nods, takes a shaky breath, and starts talking. It started 8 years ago. Your father and I were going through a rough patch, you were away at law school, Marcus was traveling for work, and we just drifted. Richard Morrison was handling some business contracts for your father. We started having drinks after meetings. It was stupid. It was selfish. It lasted about a year before I ended it. Did Dad know? Not until Diane told him, 6 months before the wedding. She'd suspected for years, apparently, but didn't have proof until she found old emails Richard had kept. She threatened to send them to everyone, your father's business partners, Marcus, the whole family. Unless I did what she wanted. Which was to hide me. She said if I could make you disappear for the wedding, Prove I was willing to do whatever it took to protect my secrets, she'd stay quiet. She said you were the test. That if I passed, she'd believe I could keep her secret too. Mom's voice breaks. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth, I say. You could have owned what you did instead of dragging me into it. I know. I know that now. She looks at me with red-rimmed eyes. When you left that wedding, when Claire exposed everything anyway, I was furious. At you, at her, at the whole situation. But then the days passed, and Marcus and Vanessa's marriage fell apart, and your father and I had to actually face what we'd done. Not just the affair, what we'd done to you. How we treated you your whole life. And we realized we'd been cowards. That we'd spent so long worrying about what other people thought that we forgot to care about what mattered. About who mattered. She reaches out, tentative, and touches my arm. You mattered. You matter. And I'm so sorry we made you feel like you didn't. I want to stay angry. I want to hold on to the hurt like armor. But sitting here, watching my father sleep fitfully, seeing my mother genuinely broken and trying to put the pieces back together, I'm just tired. I need time, I tell her. I need space to figure out if I can trust you again. Both of you. And I need you to understand that even if I forgive you eventually, things are never going back to how they were. I'm not going back to being convenient. I'm not hiding anymore. Claire is part of my life. My whole life. And if you can't handle that, we can, Mom says quickly. We want to. Your father and I have been talking, when he's lucid. We want to do better. Be better. Talking is easy, I say. Showing up is harder. Then we'll show up, Mom says. However long it takes. Whatever you need. Claire's hand lands on my shoulder, and I reach up to cover it with mine. My mother's eyes track the movement, and something in her expression softens. You're good for her, Mom says to Claire. I can see that. I'm sorry for how I treated you at the wedding. How I treated both of you. I appreciate that, Claire says carefully. But the person you really need to make amends with is Ray. I'm just here to support her. Still, Mom insists. I'm sorry. We stay at the hospital until dawn. Marcus and David bring coffee and terrible cafeteria sandwiches. We take turns sitting with Dad, who wakes periodically and seems to relax when he sees me there. Mom tells us more stories, filling in gaps, being honest about her mistakes in a way I've never heard from her before. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. But it's a start. By the time the sun rises, Dad is stable enough that the doctors downgrade him from critical to serious. He'll need months of physical therapy. He might never fully recover. But he's going to live. Claire and I drive home late the next afternoon, both of us exhausted. I lean my head against the window and watch the landscape blur past. That was intense, Claire says finally. Yeah. How are you feeling? I consider the question. Raw. Confused. Hopeful, maybe? I don't know. Is it possible to feel all of those things at once? Absolutely. She glances over at me. You were incredibly brave in there. I was terrified. Brave people usually are. She reaches over, takes my hand. I'm proud of you. Whatever you decide about your family, whatever happens next, I'm proud of you for showing up. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, Claire says firmly. But I'm glad you didn't have to. We drive in comfortable silence for a while. Then my phone buzzes. A text from Simone, girl, Marcus just called me. Said you went to see your dad. Details immediately. I smile and type back, long story. Wine bar tomorrow night? Her response is instant, already making the reservation. Bring Claire. I want to hear everything. I put my phone down and look over at Claire. This woman who walked into my life in the middle of chaos, who saw me when I was invisible, who stayed through all the messy aftermath. Move in with me, I say suddenly. Claire nearly swerves into the next lane. What? Move in with me. Officially. You're already there half the time anyway, and I hate the nights you're not. I want you there. All the time. If you want that too. She's quiet for a moment, and my heart starts to sink. Too much, too fast, I push too hard. Yes, Claire says. Absolutely yes. Relief floods through me. Yeah? I've been wanting to ask for months but didn't want to pressure you, especially with everything with your family. She grins. But yeah. Yes. Let's do it. We're both grinning like idiots now, and something in my chest feels light. Like possibility. Like future. 6 months later, Claire's fully moved in. We've turned my tiny apartment into our space, her books mixed with mine, her terrible abstract art prints balanced by my vintage movie posters, her organic tea collection taking over my coffee shelf. It's chaotic and perfect and home. My father's recovery is slow but steady. He walks with a cane now, and his speech is clearer, though he still struggles with certain words. I visit once a month. Sometimes twice. We're learning how to talk to each other, really talk, without all the old landmines. My mother and I are still finding our footing. She's trying, really trying, but decades of habits don't break overnight. Sometimes she says things that sting, old patterns resurfacing. But she catches herself now. Apologizes. Tries again. Marcus and David got married again, a tiny ceremony in their backyard with just family. Real family this time. The kind who show up and stay. I was his best man, best person? We laughed about the terminology. It felt right. And Vanessa? She reached out last month, asked to meet for coffee. Turns out she'd been as trapped in her mother's web as the rest of us. We're not friends, exactly, but we're friendly. She's engaged to someone new, someone who makes her laugh in a way I never saw during her time with Marcus. Diane Morrison, ironically, is the one who disappeared. After the truth came out, her husband divorced her. Her kids stopped talking to her. Last I heard, she moved across the country, trying to start over where no one knew her story. Sometimes destruction really is the path forward. I'm sitting at my desk at work on a random Tuesday afternoon when my assistant buzzes. Ray? There's someone here to see you. She says it's important. I'm not expecting anyone, but I tell her to send them in. The door opens. It's a woman I don't recognize. Maybe mid-50s, well-dressed, nervous energy radiating off her. Miss Chen? I'm Rebecca Morrison. Richard's sister. I sit up straighter. Vanessa's aunt. Part of the family that started all of this. What can I do for you? I ask carefully. She sits down uninvited, clutching her purse like a lifeline. I needed to meet you. To apologize. I knew what my sister-in-law was doing. I knew she was blackmailing your mother, using you as leverage. And I said nothing. I wait. I told myself it wasn't my business. That I should stay out of it. But I saw the seating chart for the wedding. I saw your name alone at that back table. And I knew it was wrong, and I still said nothing. Her eyes meet mine. I'm so sorry. Why now? I ask. Why come here 2 years after everything exploded? Because I have a daughter, Rebecca says quietly. She's 16. And last month she came out to me. Told me she's been terrified to say anything because of how the family talks, how we judge, how we hide anything that makes us uncomfortable. She swallows hard. She asked me if I'd be ashamed of her. And I realized I'd let my silence teach her that shame was the appropriate response to truth. Something in my throat tightens. What did you tell her? I told her I love her. All of her. And that I was sorry for every time I'd stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. For every time I'd let other people's prejudices go unchallenged. Rebecca pulls out a photograph, hands it to me. This is Maya. I wanted you to know that because of what happened at that wedding, because of how you refused to be erased, my daughter knows she doesn't have to hide. I look at the photo. A teenage girl with Rebecca's eyes, smiling genuinely at the camera. Thank you for showing me this, I say softly. No. Thank you. For being brave when everyone wanted you to be quiet. Rebecca stands. I won't take up any more of your time. I just needed you to know that what you did mattered. It rippled out further than you know. After she leaves, I sit at my desk for a long time, staring at nothing. Thinking about that girl, Maya, who gets to grow up knowing her truth isn't shameful. Thinking about how many other people might have been in that barn that day, watching everything implode, and went home to their own families and made different choices. That evening, I tell Claire about the visit over dinner. You changed things, she says simply. That's what happens when you stop accepting erasure. You give other people permission to exist too. I didn't do anything special. I just showed up. Showing up is everything, Claire says. She reaches across the table, takes my hand. Hey. So I have something to ask you. Her tone makes my heart skip. Yeah? She pulls out a small box. Oh. I know we said we weren't in a hurry, Claire says, opening it to reveal a simple silver band. I know we're still figuring things out, building this life together. But I wake up every day grateful I walked into that wedding. Grateful I sat down next to you. Grateful you trusted me enough to stay. Her eyes are bright, Marry me, Ray. Let's build something real. Something honest. Something that doesn't hide in shadows. I'm crying before I even realize it. Happy tears this time? Joyful ones. Yes, I manage. Absolutely yes. She slides the ring onto my finger, and it fits perfectly. Of course it does. We're getting married in 3 months. Small ceremony, close friends, chosen family. My parents will be there. Dad will walk me down the aisle if his physical therapy continues going well. Marcus is giving a toast. Simone is officiating, because she got ordained online specifically for this and won't stop reminding us. It won't be perfect. Someone will probably say something awkward. There will be moments of tension, of old wounds showing through. But it will be honest. It will be us. And that's worth everything. I think about that night sometimes, sitting alone at table 14, feeling invisible and erased. I think about how close I came to leaving before Claire sat down. How different my life would be if I'd walked out 5 minutes earlier. I'm not going to lie and say everything's perfect now. That all wounds have healed, that my family never slips back into old patterns, that life is some fairy tale. But I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy in a way I didn't think was possible 3 years ago. I'm marrying someone who sees me completely and chooses me anyway. I have a family that's learning to do better. I have work I'm good at, friends who show up, a life I don't have to apologize for. And I have myself, whole and undiminished. That stranger who whispered "act like you're with me" gave me permission to stop acting and start living. And I'm never going back.